Day in court. The parents of murdered schoolboy Daniel Morcombe get set to face his alleged killer. Many questions. The coalition steps up attacks on the Prime Minister over that union slush fund. And vaccine warning. The alarming increase in Australian parents refusing to get their children immunised.
This is 10 News with Ron Wilson.
Morning everyone. Bruce and Denise Morcombe will come face to face with the man who allegedly killed their son Daniel when he appears at a committal hearing today. 10's Jonathan Lee joins us now live from the Brisbane Magistrates Court. Jono, I have such respect for the Morcombes, all the work they've done for children since their own child disappeared. Although I imagine today will be a very personal one for them. Have they arrived at court yet?
Yeah, good morning, Ron. The Bruce and Denise Morcombe arrived around 30 minutes ago here at the Magistrates Court. Now, throughout this entire ordeal, they've been very happy to speak with the media, but today they remain stone-faced. They avoided making any comment as they enter the courthouse behind me. Now, you must really spare a thought for their emotions, what they've gone through over the past 9 years as they've fought for justice. Now, 15 months ago, police believe they found the remains of young Daniel Morcombe on the Sunshine Coast. Now, it is the strength of that discovery, the scientific analysis, which will become the backbone of these proceedings over the next 2 weeks. Now, of course, the defence is desperate to try and discredit those scientific discoveries and the validity of the DNA. No doubt, though, the prosecution, the Crown, will be pushing ahead. In fact, they will be calling witnesses from far afield as New Zealand.
The funeral of murdered Melbourne woman Sarah Cafferkey will take place this afternoon. The 22-year-old was allegedly stabbed to death and dumped in a wheelie bin in the city's southwest. So far, one man, 47-year-old Stephen Hunter, has been charged with her murder. Still ahead in 10's Morning News. Deadly inferno. Emergency crews in Bangladesh search for bodies following a devastating factory fire. And refusing to immunise. The alarm at the number of parents not vaccinating their children. You're watching the Morning News on 10. Emergency crews are still searching for victims after a factory fire in Bangladesh killed at least 112 people. Hundreds of workers were trapped as the blaze broke out in the 9-storey building, with some forced to jump to their deaths. Authorities say an electrical fault may have caused the disaster. Sue Saville reports.
As firefighters scoured the charred debris of the Tazreen Fashions factory, it emerged that 2,000 people were working in the 7-storey building when the fire broke out. At least 9 workers who tried to jump to safety were killed, many more injured. As the bodies found inside the building were brought out, the death toll rapidly rose over 100.
We are now recovering the dead bodies and trying to hand them over to their respective victim families.
Australian medical authorities are becoming increasingly alarmed at the significant numbers of parents who are refusing to have their children immunised against infectious diseases. The Australian Academy of Science and the Australian Medical Association have joined forces to produce a booklet aimed at stemming the increase in so-called vaccine objectors. Dr. Steve Hamilton is the federal president of the AMA and he joins me at the desk this morning. Professor, good morning. Well, the obvious question is, why is it so important to be immunised?
Well, it's so important to be immunised to make sure that our children are protected and we need to make sure that the sufficient herd immunity is out there too, because no immunisation, no vaccine is 100% effective. So we actually look after our own children, but we also look after the community. If we don't keep those immunisation levels up, we'll see a return of some very, very serious diseases, the like of which most parents can't even remember.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of these diseases just aren't known in the community anymore. If you choose not to immunise your children, you send them out there into schools, kindergartens or whatever, what are the wider implications in specific terms for the rest of the community?
Well, every now and again we see an outbreak of measles. Now, Australia's been declared measles-free, but sometimes you'll go overseas and bring back a case of measles. It will catch on in areas where the vaccination rates are not sufficient. So we saw an outbreak in Western Sydney recently, we see outbreaks in southeast Queensland, we see outbreaks in northern New South Wales.
Easy access, that's great. Doctor, thank you very much for coming and have a chat to us. Dr. Steve Hamilton from the AMA.
Thank you very much.
And talking about their website, just Google search Australian Medical Association. Still ahead on 10's Morning News. Having it all, we speak to an expert about how women can achieve success at work and at home. and download overload. We'll find out the best ways to get music in this digital age.
This week, Taylor Swift, our own Hugh Jackman and Murray from the Wiggles all join us right here on The Project. And from next Monday, The Project starts at a brand new time on 10.
Quick check of the finance numbers for you this morning. The stock market off to a pretty good start, really. On the All Ords, 44.44, that's up 12.5. And on the currency markets, the Aussie dollar a little over 104 US cents this morning, 65 pence, 86 yen, nearly 81 euro cents, and $1.27 New Zealand. Victims of sexual abuse in the Defence Force are to receive compensation and a formal apology in the wake of the Skype sex scandal, which of course was broken by 10 News. Political editor Hugh Riminton joins us now live. Hugh, take us through the details of this announcement that's just come through.
Just got it in my hands here, Ron. We're working our way through. The Defence Minister, Stephen Smith, has just held a news conference. But here are the salient points from it. At midday today, Eastern Time, the Defence Minister, Stephen Smith, will stand up in Parliament and he will apologise to people down through the decades, service personnel who are subject to abuses and to sexual harassment while in their service in the Defence Force. That is just the start of it. He has announced an independent task force. It'll be chaired by Len Roberts-Smith. He is both a former WA Supreme Court judge. He's also the father of the Victoria Cross recipient Ben Roberts-Smith. He will head a task force with a number of other people who are on board looking into abuses, into specific cases. 775 people have come forward as part of the process that was sparked by the Skype sex scandal that we broke last year, and they have in the most cases produced plausible allegations that they themselves were abused within the Defence Force. What will follow from this is that there will be compensation up to $50,000 on offer to those who feel that they were abused and who can give some evidence that that was the case. There will not be, we are told, a high threshold for them to meet in order to get that compensation. There will not be a royal commission broadly into abuses within defence. However, there is a potential for specific royal commissions, particularly looking at two things. One is rape events that are alleged to have taken place within the Australian Defence Force Academy in the late 1990s, specifically looking to see whether anyone who took part in those rapes, who were active in committing those rapes, or others who became aware of them, were in positions of authority and did not act appropriately, they could be subject to a further royal commission. There may also be another very specific royal commission into events at HMAS Lewin in the 1960s and 70s. Plainly, in asking for people to come forward with their stories, there have been a particular focus on what would seem to be very, very serious allegations of what took place at the Lewin in the 60s and 70s and at ADFA in the late 1990s. In a more general sense, there are people there who have suffered all kinds of abuses, hundreds and hundreds of cases. They have, in many cases, not even told their own family.
All right, Hugh, thank you. Hugh Riminton with that breaking news live from Canberra. Still ahead in 10's Morning News. Music matters. We'll take the brain overload out of music downloads in the digital age. And a very Gangnam Christmas, the light display bringing South Korea to Texas. The days of buying CDs are well and truly over, but if the new age of digital music has left you, well, a little confused, we've got some simple tips. And it's not just the big name international sites like iTunes and Spotify that dominate the music sphere these days. A new Australian company has emerged, putting the spotlight on independent and undiscovered artists. And joining us now to explain is pop culture guru Nick Gulliver. Tell us about this new Aussie contender on the market.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. It's called the Holding Pattern, and it's basically a bunch of Aussie musicians have put it together, and what it's doing is it's for undiscovered artists and up-and-coming artists to basically put their music on a platform, and they get to choose how much they want to sell it for. So, you know, we've all know someone in our family who's like a musician or someone who's trying to, you know, make it in the music field. What this does is it allows them to have a platform outside of iTunes to actually put their music and say, this is what I want to sell it for.
How does it compare to iTunes?
I mean, it's great because the good thing as well is it's also geared for production companies. So say if they want to make an ad or a documentary and they're looking for music, well, what they can do is they can approach the site and they can approach artists. They can say, look, you know, I've got $1,500 to spend. Were you willing to sell your music for that price? And then you can kind of choose, yeah, I'd like to. And it's a really good platform for that.
It's confusing for an old dinosaur like me, but I'm sure I'll get the hang of it.
It's a fast-moving industry, so they're going to catch up.
Pop culture guru Nick Gulliver, thanks for coming in and having a chat. The Rolling Stones have kicked off their 50th anniversary tour in London, much more my age. Despite controversy over high ticket prices, 20,000 fans packed the O2 Arena to watch the ageing rockers strut their stuff.
Just 'cause you feel so good, you have to drive me out of my head. I say, hey, hey, you got all of my fly. Hey, hey, you got all of my fly.
The Stones will play one more show in London before crossing the Atlantic for 2 shows in New York and New Jersey. It's an unlikely Christmas jingle, but it appears Gangnam Style's popularity will carry on well and truly into the holiday season. A Texas man has used the Psy's YouTube phenomenon as an inspiration for his Christmas display. Oh, I can see a bit of crazy leg action in there. It's not the homeowner's first time using cult hits, of course. His design to the Angry Birds theme song went viral last year. Speaking of Angry Birds, here's Matt Suleau with sport. What's that I smell in the air? A little victory?
It's very close. Australia are on the verge of winning, with South Africa needing a world record effort today to hold on. We'll cross live to Adelaide next. Plus, he's done it again. Sebastian Vettel becomes the youngest triple Formula One world champion. And guilty groundsperson who forgot to turn the sprinklers off at this NFL game. Welcome back. Australia is on the verge of victory in the second test against South Africa. 10's Joe Hill joins us from Adelaide. Joe, the Proteas are chasing a world record 430 for victory today. Are they any chance of doing it?
Matt, it is extremely unlikely. They'll resume here this morning at 4 for 77. They're trying. That means they've got 353 runs left to make. You would say it is a very, very long shot indeed. Australia, we've only got 6 wickets left to take, so hopefully that gets done in quick order and we can all have an early lunch today. The Proteas' only real hope was to salvage a draw with a rain delay, but looking at the weather, there are showers forecast. However, it's nice and sunny at the moment, Matt.
Joe, Ricky Ponting has failed to fire with a bat in this series. Could it be his last?
Well, he hasn't had a good time here in Adelaide. He scored those 4 runs before being dismissed almost comically and then fell for a duck in the second innings as well. The selectors have very difficult things to mull over in their minds. You've got Shane Watson coming back. You've got a lot of guys that are pushing for call-ups. Do you give Ricky Ponting one last chance in Perth, or do you just bite the bullet and get rid of him? Matt, it's going to be a very tough week for the selectors.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you very much, Joe Hill in Adelaide there. Well, Sebastian Vettel has become the youngest triple world champion in Formula One history, but only just. The 25-year-old entered the season-ending Brazilian Grand Prix holding a slender lead over Fernando Alonso, and the slippery conditions almost proved Vettel's undoing. Nick Butler has the story.
He's been the standout driver all season, but a wet circuit in Brazil provided Sebastian Vettel one final test.
So, Brian, I'd say he's probably been relegated out to watering the plants outside now.
They are the Dolphins. They should have no problem with this. Matt Suleau, thank you. Magdalena's got the weather after the break.
Well, good morning. morning. We're getting an early taste of summer around the country with really hot temperatures for most of you, plus those type of summer storms that you'd normally see. So very tropical, humid conditions and then very volatile during the afternoon. And the reason why we're seeing all of this is that there's a very hot air mass which is just really lying over most of the central part of the country. It's being fed by moist winds coming in off the ocean, so that high pressure system, you can see the winds moving in an anti-clockwise direction, and those humid northeasterlies are feeding into eastern, southern and central Australia. So it's very hot and humid outside. Plus we've got a number of troughs, and these are triggering showers and thunderstorms across a number of areas today. Southern parts of South Australia, you'll see showers across most of Victoria spreading in from the west, and the afternoon seeing showers and storms across eastern New South Wales and the ACT. Plus you'll notice that most of the action is in fact over the tropics and central parts of the country. Now tomorrow in particular we're seeing showers and storms across eastern New South Wales, which are likely to be severe, so a bit of a heads up for that sort of activity tomorrow afternoon. If you're in Queensland though, it is very hot through the west with temps in the 40s and very warm across the east with 29 degrees and sunshine for Brisbane. Rain-wise, we'll only see isolated showers over the northeast tropical coast and the potential of some isolated showers and storms anywhere from the northwest stretching across to the southern and central interior today. New South Wales, now really hot through the west. There'll be some thunder, but very little, if any, rain coming out of it. So 40 degrees in Broken Hill today, 37 degrees in Dubbo. You'll notice the east very warm as well, and showers and thunderstorms are expected to spark up this afternoon and this evening, potentially affecting Sydney and Canberra as well. But tomorrow will be much, much worse. I've looked at some of the computer models and they're really showing some pretty intense thunderstorm activity. So hail, damaging winds, flash flooding are all likely tomorrow. In Victoria, we've got showers spreading in from the west across the state, so that's affecting Melbourne today with a mild 22 degrees. Chance of some thunder over the eastern ranges and much hotter up north with 33 degrees in Swan Hill today. Tassie, not too bad. It's actually quite mild. 20 degrees in Hobart, 24 in Launceston, and a bit of shower activity expected over the northern inland, but Hobart itself will remain dry today. In South Australia, we've already been seeing the showers and storms this morning over the agricultural area, and that has been affecting parts of Adelaide today as well. So for the cricket, generally speaking, it's warm, humid, 32 degrees. The showers and thunderstorms are very isolated, so whether it actually goes right over the cricket, it's anyone's guess, but I'd be very surprised if there wasn't at least one delay as a result of that. In Western Australia, it's sunny in Perth with 27. Do your washing today or maybe even tomorrow, but get it off the line before the evening tomorrow because that's when the showers will start to roll in. We've got storms over the Kimberley, Pilbara and interior, as well as Central Australia, 40 in Alice, and an afternoon shower or storm in Darwin. Quick check of tomorrow. Brisbane, a possible shower with 30. Volatile storms for Sydney and Canberra. Same for Melbourne, showers and storms with 25, but they should clear in Adelaide with a high of 31 degrees. Ronnie, so I'll be very busy over the next few days.
I'd like to see that. Magdalena, thank you very much. Just recapping our breaking news this hour, Defence Minister Stephen Smith will shortly make a parliamentary apology to victims of abuse within the Australian Defence Force. A task force is also being established to assess the individual complaints and any wider systemic issues. It'll be headed by former Western Australian Supreme Court Judge Len Roberts-Smith, who is the father of recent VC recipient Ben Roberts-Smith. People who have evidence of sex abuse against them will be eligible for up to $50,000 in compensation. The entire issue came to light due to a report on 10 News about the Australian Defence Force Academy Skype scandal. The announcement by Stephen Smith to the Parliament will occur at midday today Eastern Time. That's it for 10's Morning News. We'll have updates throughout the day and of course full coverage in our 5 o'clock news hour this evening. I'm Ron Wilson. You have a good day.